So here I am with Tom Yack, one of the TEP founding fathers. Actually, his number is #1. Tom, tell us how the fraternity got started.
Well, I'll need some help from Rick.
Rick, why don't you come over here?
But as a freshman, I was in the dorm, and I met Rick. Bob was my roommate, and we kind of got together and knew each other, did some things together. Then they stayed in the dorm, and I went off with a guy by the name of Denny Zamler, who had come from Lawrence
Tech?
I believe it was Lawrence Tech, yeah.
Or Detroit Tech?
No, I think it was Lawrence Tech.
No, it was Lawrence Tech.
And then I can't remember how he hooked up with Zamler, but he asked me to be a roommate with another guy. And we lived in the 3rd floor of the house right next to the Arm of Honor house. And then these guys...
We tried to, all of us went through Rush.
And that was the key.
Which was fine, but all of us, well, there were 4 of us, I think, we couldn't get the same bid to the same fraternity.
Richard and I were the only ones that got from Delt. We called it Delt Pigs, and we didn't want to go to Delt Pigs. I had one from Kappa, you had one from somebody else. I was going to go to Kappa, but then nobody else around here had a bid, or and we couldn't get all 4 of us together. So he said,
so he's talking.
Well, they just
Zamler.
wanted good-looking guys.
Yeah, well, that's
Kappa did. That's true. That's true.
But it was odd because we were trying to figure out what to do, and we figured, how can we all get together? And then he gets along with Zamler and goes, well, I've got these great connections in New York. We'll start a fraternity. We'll get them to fund us.
Yeah, which we totally didn't believe. But
right, and we didn't realize it was a Jewish fraternity.
We had no clue.
We had no idea.
We had no clue.
And boy, is it now.
We spent the rest of our time trying to be a non-Jewish fraternity.
Well, some of the early guys were Fetterbush, Zamler, Zarin. Yeah, all those kind of names.
We had about 5 or 6 of them. Probably
least, at least.
No more than 8 or 9. It never got more than that.
Minority. We were the mutts. We had everything.
Right.
So then what we did is he got us hooked up with this guy who was the head of the TEPs nationwide.
Sydney Suntag.
I know you. How are you?
There goes my interview.
Sure, join us.
This is my house.
Very nice.
Hi, Tom. Oh my gosh.
I would do this, except I have new eyes.
Do you?
Excuse me.
I've been told I have cataract starting. So, hi. Excuse me.
So Zamler hooked us up with Sydney Suntag, who had he smoked a cigarette, but on this long cigarette
That's
holder.
right, I remember those.
Bald guy, very distinguished looking.
Yes.
Yeah, bald eagle, we call him. So before you know it, they buy us a house, beautiful house. It was chopped up into a rooming house, right? As I can recall.
Well,
yeah, kind of.
Beautiful, a crystal chandelier.
2 old ladies owned it. I went up to the door and knocked on the door.
Leaded glass.
Bill Donnan, if you can believe it. And asked her if she wanted to sell her house. And the shock of all time was she goes, actually, we are interested in listing it. And it was like, we bought the house.
Yeah.
They bought it for us, cash was great, and then we took the upstairs attic, and my dad and a couple of others, we brought in all the materials and created a number of rooms up in the attic.
Top of the flame.
Top of the flame, right,
Top of the flame.
Okay.
Here was the funniest part. The reason that Sydney and his group wanted to do this is because they were having problems establishing any kind of a chapter at U of M. So they figured if they could establish a chapter at Eastern, they could compete with Sammy's and ZBT's over at Michigan.
Right.
That was at least the theory.
So we did something really stupid. We went out and bought brand new carpeting for the place, and it was beige for a while. Not too long. You know, there were rules like you had to take your shoes off at the door. That went away really fast.
To put a date on things, Bob might have been president at this time, but he resigned because, get ready, because alcohol was going to be.
Well, let me add to that story. I was president, and then I went abroad for a semester to England as an exchange student. Bob took over. There was no alcohol in the house when I left. By the time I got back, drugs were in the house.
I know that sounds really square.
Yeah, but
back then, if you had alcohol anywhere on campus, you were kicked out of the university.
Yep.
Wow.
There was a good reason not to have it.
It wasn't that he was that square. It was just that.
Well, and that
were the rules.
And that was in '64 because in '64 was really the last year. And then I left. I graduated and went to law school. So '64 was kind of that last year. By the time you guys got back, and by the time I'd left the house in '64 and came back in '65, you're right. We had moved from alcohol to there were drugs in the house, which was really a shocker to all of us for knowing that we couldn't have alcohol. We had to get in our cars and drive down to Toledo to drink 3-2 beer.
Right.
Trust me, we had a.
We did that too.
Well, Mike Long flipped. Yes, that's right.
That was it.
Flipped his car.
And Mike Long flipped his car coming back from there.
Then you guys probably remember. We were never very large, so we had to compete in all kinds of sports. We showed up for broom ball and touch football and all that kind of stuff. And we were noted really as a social service fraternity. Remember that? Collecting,
Squares.
Yeah, squares. Yeah, using Vitali's truck for paper drives for UNICEF and all the rest of the
that
stuff.
Didn't last long.
Well,
Some of us thought of that. Hell with that stuff.
Yeah, but it changed once you got Stevenson and Latka and the rest of the guys that were the athletes, the swimmers, the baseball
Mike
players.
Dombrowski.
Tory. And you're right. All those guys we started recruiting. What happened is we started recruiting.
Well, we had the only black diver, I think.
That's right.
In Eastern's history.
First one
That's
ever
right.
black member.
We were integrated.
Yeah.
We were. First one.
The National was
that's great.
Yeah, true.
We visited the National. It was a Fifth Avenue address.
We flew to New York.
And we just kept going on Fifth Avenue, and the big buildings, and then sort of smaller buildings, and then really run down buildings. That's where Tep was.
Yeah.
Sidney with his
cigarette holder.
Cigarette holder.
God.
Interesting guy.
There were quite interesting times of getting everything started. It really was. It was fascinating because it was a brand new experience. It gave us the opportunity to first start with the core group that we wanted to get together from the dorm, and then we started expanding it from there, and it kind of caught on. And like I said, we really started actively recruiting, some of the athletes and some of the other folks that we run into, and it really turned out to be a great thing.
Where you'll remember the biggest catch of the time was, Mike Yankee.
Mike Yankee.
The famous Mike Yankee.
He was a fullback.
Fullback on the football team.
On the football team, that's exactly right.
I don't think he ever talked to any of us after that, but nonetheless he did.
I interviewed him when I pledged.
Oh, you did? Okay.
And I was probably the last one because he was gone after that.
Is that right?
Yeah.
We've got a couple pictures of him on the old site when we had intramural track team. And Mike was a member with myself and Dew Ross, and let's see, who else was? I can't remember the other guys. Jerry Mazaris was one of them. Jerry.
He was a sprinter. Yeah.
And Jerry. Yep. And we that was fall of '67.
That was on Bricks.
At Brick Stadium.
Yep. I don't know if you guys remember, but when we used to go to football games, they were in the NAIA at the time.
Right.
Had good teams. You had to get there like early because it didn't seat very many people, and people sat like right up to the end of the end zone.
Yeah.
It was jam packed, and then they built Reinerson Stadium after that.